Good evening and thanks for joining us at this LUSU BDS referendum debate. BDS stands for Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions and is part of an international campaign to force changes to Israeli foreign policy by targeting businesses that are linked to disputed settlements in Palestinian territory. These settlements have been declared illegal by the United Nations. We're expecting an interesting and illuminating debate, and we hope that by the end of the debate you'll have all the information you need to form a conclusion on how you wish to vote on this complex topic when polls open on Wednesday. Before we start, some reminders. We expect this debate to be conducted in a civilised, constructive and respectful way. Freedom of speech is a basic human right, but we have to balance that with the right to protection from hate speech. This event is being live streamed, just to make anyone aware of that. The debate is about whether LUSU should boycott the following companies listed in the referendum question: Israeli Mejol Dates, Ahava Cosmetics, SodaStream, Eden Springs Bottled Water, Israeli Wines, Hewlett-Packard, Caterpillar, Volvo, Hyundai and G4S. These companies have been identified by BDS campaigners as being complicit in the occupation of the Palestinian territories. Tonight's debate is specifically about the border disputes between Israel and Palestine. Discussions about race, religion and the right to statehood are off limits. If you raise these issues, you'll be asked to retract your comments or leave. So now I'd like to introduce tonight's panel. For the Yes campaign, we have Rami Kararik and Jasmine Owens, and for the No campaign, we have Claire Robinson and Nathan Burns. We will start with 5 minutes opening statement from each side, followed by questions from the floor, and we'll finish with a 5-minute closing statement from each side. If you wish to ask a question, please write the question along with your name on one of the cards that have been placed around the room and hand them to a member of staff. If your question is selected, I'll invite you to stand up to put it to the panel. Please wait until a microphone is given to you. If you wish to stay anonymous, leave out your name and I'll read the question out for you. We tossed a coin before the start of the debate and have agreed that the Yes campaign will speak first. So I'd like to invite Rami to take the lectern to open the discussion.
Hello everybody, thanks a lot for being here. Thanks for LUSU for opening this chance for us for this discussion. In fact, to make everything, to clarify anything in the word, just put it in simple terms, and this is what I'm going to do tonight. And before getting into the main point of why we are here today and why it is so important for us and for you to vote yes for BDS, we need to put the whole struggle in its accurate socio-political context. We need to remember that with the establishment of Israel in 1948, 1 million Palestinians were expelled by force. And today's Israeli historiographers and sociologists admit this. Nobody can deny that. The idea is that they're trying to find a moral justification for expelling 1 million Palestinians. In 1967, Israel took over all the Palestinian lands, subjecting all Palestinians to very violent military ruling. I'm just going to list very few aspects of under which we are living every day till this moment. One, confiscating the lands of Palestinians to construct the illegal settlements. Illegal settlements defined illegal by the international law. Settlers in these settlements carry guns and weapons and commit crimes on daily basis. They burned a live family months ago, killing the father, the mother, and an 18-month baby, leaving just 4-year-old with serious injuries. This is what settlers in the West Bank are doing nowadays, every day. Imposing hundreds of checkpoints in the West Bank, making it very impossible to reach to move between places like Hisham and Lancaster, where you need to spend maybe 7-8 hours or just go home. You can't reach your work or you can't reach your university. Imposing curfews on Palestinians on daily basis. Sometimes they go for months where you can't go outside your house to get food or water for your family. Constructing a segregating wall, cutting through our cities, our towns, our schools, where in Anata town in the West Bank, the wall goes through one school, making it into 2 halves. Some people might come today and say, okay, let's open a door for a dialogue for Israelis and Palestinians and try to find a peaceful resolution for this conflict, regardless of what Israelis have done and still doing for Palestinians. We say, okay, we will do that. We got involved into a peace process, the so-called peace process, for 25 years. 25 years, we got the following. Thousands of people were killed in the West Bank. 5- and 6-year-old children are arrested every day in Hebron city in the West Bank. 3 wars in Gaza, thousands were killed, thousands injured, demolishing thousands of houses. This is the result of the peace process. Taking all these realities into account, we believe that it's time to change from outside, because we started to believe very early that it's impossible for Israelis to cause a change from inside. Every day they are taking more land. Every day they are killing more people. Just watch the news. And now with social media, you can get into the reality on the ground and see what's going on every day. And taking South Africa as an example, we believe that a movement like BDS is one of the best ways to avoid violent confrontations. Palestinians, we are still teaching humanity. We want to avoid violent confrontations. How the international community, you should act to say no to the occupation. Many associations, universities, and scholars around the world are joining this campaign. And they know that this is the only way to make Israel admit the rights of Palestinians. And this includes Israelis and Jewish communities who know that this does not only save Palestinians, it also saves Israel from itself and from leaders like Benjamin Netanyahu, who said months ago that nobody can dream of a Palestinian state after 25 years of what they call process of peace.
30 seconds remaining.
As Banksy, when he went to Palestine, said, if we wash our hands of the conflict between the powerful and the powerless, we side with the powerful. We are not neutral anymore. This means that when you say no to BDS, you say yes to the continuation of occupation, to the killing, segregating, confiscating, arresting, every day, every single minute. Be part of this action.
Thank you
say
very much.
Palestinians.
That is your 5 minutes.
And say no to
Rami, thank you very much.
Say no to this suffering of Palestinians. Thank you very much.
Now, Nathan for the No campaign is going to read his opening statement.
Use my phone as a timer if I want that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I'd like to start off by making it unshakably clear that the No campaign is not pro-Israeli or pro-Palestinian. We are pro-peace. We feel the pain of the Palestinian people and it needs to stop. The Palestinian-Israeli conflict has raged on for far too long and cost far too many lives. We don't think the fear a Palestinian child feels when they cower in the basement waiting for the next airstrike to pass over is any different or more or less significant than that of an Israeli child hiding under their classroom desk and waiting for the next rocket attack to end. We don't see dead or displaced Palestinians or Israelis, we see dead people. I can't make it clear enough how much we want to see an end to this conflict, which is why this has to be the first question we ask when we consider this referendum, is whether or not it will work. So yeah, I guess that's what the question we're asking here is. Will a boycott end the conflict? And I'm afraid the answer is an unequivocal no, and that's for a multitude of reasons. Firstly, we need to think about what this is going to do to the internal politics of Israel. It's important that we remember, for all of Israel's faults that Rami's outlined quite clearly, it's a democracy. And in a democracy, governments change, policy changes, and it can and it will change. There are people within Israel who believe in a peaceful two-state solution, and they stand for election, and if we want peace, we need them to win elections. And BDS is never going to help their cause. As we've seen time and time again with sanctions, they only encourage and entrench right-wing reactionaries like Saddam Hussein in Iraq, Vladimir Putin in Russia, and BDS is playing straight into Netanyahu's hands, I'm afraid. all it does is reinforce the nasty, divisive and isolationist narrative that he used to win his election. He tells people that Israel is under threat, he's the only one who can protect them, and we can't have peace, we can't have two-state solution because they're already under immense threat in a region that, frankly, in some cases doesn't tolerate their nation's existence. How are progressive forces within Israel supposed to fight that narrative, to debunk it, to seize the day, to be the government that makes peace, when we are here contributing to that narrative by supporting BDS? Also, part of having successful peace negotiations, especially when you're initially just getting people around the table, is about getting all sides to admit they've committed wrongs. And it's especially important considering the history of this conflict and how many horrible wrongs have been committed. Now, it's going to be completely impossible to get Israel to agree to peace negotiations while simultaneously blaming them for the entire history of the conflict, which is what BDS is going to do. But just don't take my word for it. The leader of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, knows this too. He says boycotting Israel is a terrible idea because he knows how much damage it does to Israeli-Palestinian relations and how difficult that makes it to negotiate peaceful settlement. The second question we have to ask is BDS going to be the right thing to do? The answer again is no. This referendum and the wider BDS movement is about Israel. Voting yes would make a very clear statement about the conflict and Israel's role in it. You are simply blaming Israel for everything if you vote no. Now, as Rami's made very clear, Israel's done many things wrong, but they're not entirely to blame for the entire conflict. You know, as it's still a democracy, and in the Hamas-governed Gaza, there hasn't been an election since 2006. It's a very complex and nuanced conflict, and we can't go around just pointing fingers and making sweeping assumptions about things. Finally, I think we have to consider what this means for students on campus. Other than the fact that boycotting Hyundai and Volvo might make life worse for many STEM students who rely on careers fairs, there's a far more serious narrative to consider about anti-Semitism on campus. Now, I'm not accusing the S side of being anti-Semitic. I know they proposed this motion with only the best intentions in mind, but there's still a potential for us isolating Israeli and Jewish students. Like I've spoken to Jewish students, and there's a real fear here about how this could potentially exclude people from the students' union.
30 seconds remaining.
And there's also a potential for a really terrifying slippery slope, because the University of Durban, for example, that did pass a BDS motion, their next step was to seek to expel any Jewish students who didn't actively support the state of Israel from the university. Now, that's terrifying. Our campus and our students' union need to be inclusive for everyone. I don't think making a meaningless political point by voting
and that is
yes
your 5
is
minutes.
worth losing.
Thank you very much. Have you got any questions? If there are any questions from the floor, please hand them to the staff members who are just walking down now. No, we're just going to go straight into the first question. The first question selected is from Simon. Have we got Simon? Yes? Okay, if we could have a microphone passed just down to the second row here. Yes?
Which question did you choose at A3?
Yeah, we'll hand it back to you then.
Okay, so my question is to the Yes campaign. Is this boycott not going way beyond LUSU's mandate and running a high risk of actively marginalising Israeli and Jewish students? Not to mention the fact that we would be effectively siding with a state that has no protection of LGBT rights against a state that does. What are we saying by doing this?
Thank you for this question. I thought you would avoid this question, copying it from BBC or I don't know, but thank you for reminding me this. Anti-Semitism. I just wonder, I question your intentionality saying no to any peaceful resolution of the conflict. Why you always push Israel with the Arab countries and Palestinians for violent confrontation? I ask you for this. Second, I would like to ask Jewish and Israeli, not Jewish, because we should distinguish between Jewish and Israeli students. I know many Jewish people here and in Europe who are supporting Palestine and who are with BDS. I'm just asking question to Israeli students. When you go along the city in the West Bank, cities in the West Bank with your car, having good education, having great life, very much like European countries here, opportunities of work, living, education, luxury of life. And then you see, as Israeli student, you see thousands of Palestinians stuck at the checkpoint. When you see a woman delivering her baby at a checkpoint, what is your moral responsibility for that? What change you are thinking of doing inside your country? Nothing. Israelis have done nothing so far. Let me finish, please. About anti-Semitism, we always know that Israel has always tried to combine Judaism with Zionism. And just for a simple reason, aside from all this complication of the issue, just to prevent any kind of criticism against Israel. Israel is committing a crime, and whenever somebody around the world say, okay, this is not legal, they say, no, you can't be anti-Semitic. If you want to be a holder of a human and universal values, you can't distinguish between one regime and the other. Whether Jewish, Muslim, Christian, or whatever, you should abide by the international law. And the international law is saying that Israel is committing war crimes against the Palestinians. One final note for you. Do you think, my friend, that isolating a little bit feeling of Israeli students on campus here who come with their planes to UK having great life is worse than preventing burning Palestinian families again at the West Bank? Thank you very much for this choice. I would like to have you in front of mirror and asking about your moral and human values again.
Thank you very much. We will now give the No campaign a chance to respond to that. Okay, yeah, very quickly.
LUSU's mandate to protect the rights of its students. Now, it is awful what happens to Palestinians in Palestine, and no one is questioning that. We said it in our opening speech that we are against violence. The question is, we don't believe that BDS will actually change that. We believe it's going to entrench division and increase violence. So how is marginalising Lancaster University students, which will happen, because that's what they...
It's not marginalising Lancaster University students. If your government...
Ultimately, that's the fear, isn't it? That they will be marginalised.
If your government is committing crimes against somebody else...
Where does it lie in LUSU's mandate?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, both of you. I'm now going to give the No campaign a short amount of time to respond to that.
Yeah, I think you've just illustrated exactly what we're really scared about this referendum. You're asking you're demanding a response from individual Israeli citizens who've just come here to study, to engage with a political topic that they shouldn't be forced to deal with. We need to be, the Students' Union, first and foremostly, needs to be looking after its students. It shouldn't have to be forcing them into political debates they don't wish to engage in.
Yes, as it's relevant to the question.
Well, that was an interesting point to bring up. You were first talking about how BDS could marginalise students on campus. What its entire aim is to prevent the marginalisation of an entire people. That's what BDS is seeking to finish. And on the point of LGBTQ, there's actually been a term created about how Israel is using certain elements of society in which it's been able to advance, for example, LGBTQ rights. And the term that's been created for this is pinkwashing. And that's referring to how Israel uses its prowess in this situation and how it can offer really strong equal rights to LGBT community as a way to distract from the occupation, and therefore we don't really think it's relevant to the debate at hand.
I'm sure the people in Palestine have to flee from persecution with disability. I'm sure the LGBTQ...
Thank you.
Okay, me and my friends here, Palestinian.
Thank you very much. That is enough for that question. It is starting to stray from the original question. The next question is Ahmad Kabaha. Sorry if I've... Yes.
While listening to what you talked, I was really shocked to find the way you are talking and the way you are presenting alternatives, you are echoing your government, although you are saying our government is doing this and so, and you are acknowledging what's going on. The most important thing, I think, if we are against a peaceful mode of resistance, we should seek an alternative to the continuity of atrocities against Palestinians. And you don't present any alternatives. Unfortunately, you misquote Mahmoud Abbas in saying that he's against the boycott, but I think you should have thought of it carefully to see that Mahmoud Abbas is seeking more effective means because he's suing Israel in the International Criminal Court after feeling unable to continue this peace process.
Please finish your question.
Okay. As Rami said, one important issue is that you are looking for privileges for individuals at the expense of the continuity of ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in Palestine. I myself can go to Palestine, but you can. It's easy for you. You can travel, go to Manchester and go to Tel Aviv directly. But I can't go to Palestine. Thank you.
That is enough. Thank you.
Okay. So to deal with a couple of questions, to deal with that on a couple of levels. Firstly, yes, I don't think there is a dispute about the problems that there are with the occupation in the Palestinian territories. We do think it's problematic insofar as LUSU has a responsibility to protect students on campus, to ask and make Israeli students feel like they have to say or take a position on something that's incredibly complex, that is incredibly difficult. On Mahmoud Abbas, on the dialogue, right, we think that conversation matters. We think that the only way we get to an end and a peaceful solution for everyone in this conflict is to talk, to have dialogue, to talk, to create a sense of respect.
We have been talking for 25 years.
Just let them finish and then I'll give you a chance to respond.
Okay, we've been talking and we have to keep talking because that's the only option we have.
Keep under incubation.
Hang on.
Sorry.
Let the no team finish.
Thank you. So look, yes, we have been talking. We need to keep talking because the truth is nothing gets better with BDS. Nothing. This doesn't provide outside pressure. It makes people scared. People are scared on both sides even worse. It makes the situation worse. It means the conversations which are already stalling stop. We think that dialogue matters. We think that the conversations have to carry on. We think they might be fruitless, they might be hard, but they're the only possible way forward. And anything that distracts from that aim, which BDS does, is fundamentally flawed.
Thank you. One last chance to respond to that.
You are saying the BDS is against this, but unfortunately, it's with bringing dialogue. It's with bringing dialogue by bringing Israel to the road of justice, which has not been taken by Israel until now. Your leaders, the way they are talking about Palestinians, they do not exist. You don't acknowledge our existence at all. How do you want a dialogue with us? You don't acknowledge our existence at all.
Finish your response, please. Thank you. One final quick remark from the no campaign, and I'll give the yes.
As I made very clear at the beginning of my speech, we're not rejecting the idea of Palestinian statehood at all. We understand why you're angry. The people of Palestine have been subject to a multitude of injustices, but this is only going to stop if we have a peaceful two-state solution. And the only way that is going to happen is if we get both sides around the negotiating table and get them talking. BDS is not going to make this happen.
Thank you very much. I'll give the yes team a very quick chance to respond to that.
Well, as we've seen and as people have mentioned, negotiations have been happening for 25 years, and whilst these negotiations have been happening, the facts have been changing on the ground. Israeli settlements have been expanding, there have been more violations of human rights within the territories, and there's no sight of a solution to the end of the occupation. And what BDS is, what it offers, is a different alternative to negotiations because they've been tried and they've failed. And universities such as ours are joining this international movement, for example, Exeter, Sussex, SOAX, and also NUS. And a lot of people believe that BDS does really offer an alternative. Therefore, we need to try it because negotiations have clearly proven to not be functioning.
Thank you. Just in 30 minutes, finish our...
Sorry,
40 seconds.
Yeah.
Just to talk about how Israelis view dialogue. according to Israeli researchers, 2 days ago, the most famous Israeli journalist said that Israelis, after all this history of occupation and these all attempts to bring both sides to dialogue, Israelis managed to normalize and live peacefully with occupation. Why? Simply because they believe that they can do anything they want. And Golda Meir, one of the prime ministers of Israel, said explicitly, we are doing whatever we want in our treatment of Palestinians. Second, because they think they are the only victim. And most importantly, recent research in Israel from Israeli universities proved that Israelis, unfortunately, manipulated by the Zionist and neo-Zionist discourse, do not believe that Palestinians are human beings. So I don't think...
Hang on. This debate is not about whether people are classed as human beings. Both sides.
This is how I am viewed.
Yes.
Somebody who is calling for me to get and talk with. So I don't think this is a good way to bring both sides together, while one side considers the other side dehumanized.
Thank you very much. We'll leave your comment there. I'll give the side one very quick chance to respond before we move on to the next question.
Of course we think they're human. It's offensive to suggest otherwise and dangerous. And we think that this is the kind of rhetoric that scares people on both sides of the debate. And we can only pray for improvement on both sides.
Thank you very much. The next question is an anonymous one, so I'm going to read that out. In 2011, a survey found that 85% of Palestinians believe that relations with Israel are necessary. It is not irresponsible for us to vote for a boycott. Is it not irresponsible for us to vote for a boycott which will give Netanyahu the power to continue to claim the world is against Israel and further crush the Palestinians? I will give this question to the yes side first.
I don't know who asked this question, so if they just can say, so give me the source of this claim. Thank you very much. I don't know from where did you get this. Palestinians are killed every day, and you say that they think the relationship with Israel is very vital. I tell you yes, in a different way. Palestinians get their electricity from Israel, their water from Israel, everything from Israel. Nothing, even this, can get into any Palestinian house without the permission of Israel. I cannot get into my house without the permission of Israel. And yes, we can't live without the services provided by Israel. You know why? Why? Because under any circumstances, today, Nablus, the biggest city in the West Bank, was sealed because Israelis use these services to punish Palestinians for any kind of resistance. I agree with you. We can't get off of Israelis because we are under occupation. We are not equal partners. We are not saying that, yeah, we just need to throw them away. We need a dialogue between equal parts. And let me reflect on something when they said, people here try to make, I'm sorry to say that, but this is a big lie many people around the world have been saying, pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli. How can you pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli while one is occupier and one is occupied? When you talk about equality, when both sides are almost equal, but you can't be pro-occupation and pro-Palestinian. It's either or. You either support occupation, continuation of occupation, or simply you say no for occupation. But I agree with you. We can't live if Israel just sealed off anything. My friend here, Abdul Karim Zawawi, he lives in a camp in Nablus. He lived months under curfew without letting their family to get water. I agree with you because we get our water from Israel. We get our electricity, communications, everything from Israel.
Thank you. And the other team can respond.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've pretty much summed up exactly what the problem is with this referendum. It's not about making peace. It's not about ending the conflict. It's about picking sides, and that's wrong because it's never going to stop. And it might make us feel a bit better to sit here and be angry about it, but it's not going to help anyone. We need a peaceful dialogue because that's the only way. Long-running conflicts like this end, and it's not going to happen just by unilaterally saying it's your fault.
Thank you very much. We'll leave that question there and move on to a question from Zoe or Zach? Zach? Sorry.
Hi. I'd like to draw a comparison for sanctions campaign to the one that was mounted against Rhodesia, which was now known as Zimbabwe in the 1970s and late 60s. Rhodesia was, you know, a racist apartheid state, but the issue is that there were massive sanctions brought against it, quite rightly, by the international community, but it didn't actually do anything. Rhodesia still had one of the strongest economies in Africa, and you know, the reason why, and the sanctions campaign, all they did was entrench Ian Smith's racist government, but they made white Rhodesians think the world is against us. All it does is force this besiege mentality.
Please finish the question.
So I ask you, what do you think of this? That only dialogue, you know, the Lancaster House Agreement can bring about peace.
We're going to go to the no side first on this.
Boycotts. So this is exactly what we're saying. Boycotts don't work, particularly boycotts of countries where. So we heard from the side that the UN has declared the occupation illegal. Yes, it has. We completely agree with that. But the UN also recognises Israel's right to exist. States are not going to stop trading with Israel. We think that all this does, it's a band-aid to make certain groups of people feel better, feel like they're changing something. They're not changing anything, and the only thing they're doing is making an incredibly complex, difficult situation worse by forcing people to pick sides, by making Israeli students you're not born deciding what you believe in. It's a complex and difficult situation. I know lots of Israeli students who campaign intensely against the occupation, but they feel that BDS is an insult to them and is a creeping way to isolate them and the people they love from the international community. We don't think BDS will work. We think that because countries will continue to trade with Israel, and companies will continue to go in there. We think all it does is give Benjamin Netanyahu another stick to whack the only conceivable hope for peace in Israel. And on the idea that we've been negotiating for 25 years, yes, we have been negotiating for 25 years. We negotiated for 75 years in Ireland. We negotiated for 10 years in South Africa. Negotiations are the way to peace. And anyone who denies that, anyone who tries to pretend that threats and violence and boycotts are the way forward, is lying to themselves and is lying to the people around them.
Thank you. A chance for the yes team to respond on whether they think that BDS will actually work.
Just start here and we'll
Rami's going to answer this question, but I just have one point to add first. In response to what you said about how this would be stopping trade with Israel, this specific BDS referendum for LUSU would only be stopping trading produce which has come from the illegal settlements or actively contributes to the maintenance of the occupation within the illegal occupied Palestinian territories. And now, Rami.
Thank you very much. In fact, we can't say much about this. First, there is political commitment and there is a moral commitment. It's different. Sometimes, yeah, we know. Let's start with the question there that sometimes BDS or these movements might not work. I would ask you a question. Feminism is working here in Europe for decades, and they're still working for their rights. Have they achieved everything? No. Then we should tell them it's a big failure, go home. You want to say that for them then? This is one. Two, the most important thing, the distinction between political and moral commitment. We are here first talking about your moral commitment. It doesn't make sense to come to me, okay, this doesn't work. First, you should start from your human universal values. Some corporations are benefiting from the occupied territories and helping the occupation to go more and more. We start from here, and then we look into how to make these investments in such movements, translate them into political actions. And no, sorry to tell you, people here are university students and they know history very well. Ireland got their independence in a very different way. I hope we don't go that way. And South Africa got their independence with the great help of the international community by BDS, and everybody knows that. And then when they came to Palestine, they said explicitly something you don't want to hear here in the media in the West, that this apartheid in Palestine is far worse than what we got in South Africa. So we need BDS, and we need more than BDS, because otherwise Israel is going to hurt itself and cause harm for itself before Palestinians.
Would you like a chance to respond to either of the teams on that question?
You said
BDS helped contribute towards the end of apartheid in South Africa, I would take issue with that. I'd say it was more untenable for the apartheid government in South Africa due to internal oppositions. There were large uprisings in the homelands. There was massive campaign of civil disobedience among the black population. So I'd say far more than any BDS campaign contributed towards the end of apartheid in South Africa.
No, it did. And with the help of the African National Congress, the international community helped to stop. And by the way, that's why USA, in the final days of the apartheid in South Africa, under the pressure of the international community, USA took the decision to stop dealing with South African apartheid regime. Not because they wanted to do so. We know that states try to find their benefits around the world. And you know here, the British government, like any government around the world, they not sometimes ignore the minorities in different parts of the world because they have their own rights. Now, as I said, it comes your moral attitude, moral responsibility. From here we start, and don't tell me we might not get to the stage. If we don't, let it be. But I'm so proud that the free world is standing with me against occupation. And sorry to see people here in this luxurious life talking about the continuation of occupation as if a joke. Let it be continue the dialogue. Sorry, my friend, but I've lived all my life under occupation.
Finish your response. Finish your response, please.
I'm not willing to end my life under occupation. Say this from here, studying in a very good university, living your life, but you can't say this about millions who are struggling every single day.
Thank you very much. We will give the No team one more chance to respond.
Well, firstly, I'm thoroughly insulted and disgusted to think that you think I see the occupation as a joke. Secondly, I'd just like to pick up on a point of clarification. You said you don't want to see Palestine to go the way of Ireland. Now, like in Northern Ireland, after decades of negotiations, Claire pointed out, we have people who used to be trying to kill each other, working cooperatively in the same government. A place that was so violent that we had to deploy the army there now has barely any sort of terrorist threat at all. Surely that's the future we want for Palestine and Israel, not something we don't want to talk about.
Thank you very much. We will leave that question there. Claire? Yes, has anyone else got a question they would like to ask? If so, please let us know and we'll send a staff member over to pick up the piece of paper. Gary, just wait with the microphone a second. I will let you know who that's going to. Who's this anonymous one? Yeah. Okay, I think we have collected any further questions. Still going? Well, whilst that happens, the next question is another anonymous one. So I am going to read that out now. Many students will not vote in this election due to a lack of education or understanding or affiliation with the matter. Do you think it is fair on members of the union to potentially impose measures that they can't affiliate with or haven't voted on due to a lack of impartial understanding on the matter? For the yes. Yes, it says many students won't vote in this referendum due to a lack of education, understanding or affiliation with the matter. And is it fair to impose the outcome of this referendum, if it is a yes vote, on those students who haven't voted or because they do not affiliate with the matter?
We know that many students here are not fully aware of what's going on in Palestine. A lot of students here think that we are almost equal people, and we Palestinians just need a little bit of rights to be equal to Israelis, and they don't know what's going on the ground right now. So yes, we feel sorry that media, let's say the traditional media, didn't convey the right image of what's going on, and that's why we are calling for students here in Lancaster not only to vote, but also to go and do their search by themselves. Don't wait for somebody to tell you the truth. You just need to go and find the truth. After that, I'm sure we all together will go to that same path. Otherwise, yeah, I do feel sorry about this result in which the West getting a biased idea, about a biased image about what's going on in Palestine.
I'd also like to add.
Okay, very quickly.
That seems to me to be more of a question about LUSU, how it runs its affairs. If it passes in LUSU Council, and it did, only 3 people abstained from the vote, then it goes to referendum and the students have the right to vote. Therefore, it's gone through all the right policies in order to get to where it is today.
Thank you very much. We'll give the No campaign team a chance to answer.
Yeah, I think it's an absolute overreach of LUSU's mandate to be running this referendum at all. You know, this to be honest, this motion was put forward in a very sneaky fashion. You said it was passed at LUSU Council. No one was there because it was the summer and everyone had gone home. The FTOs weren't the FTOs at the time this was passed. When the referendum announcement was done through Squeak, which nobody reads, and you're deluding yourself if you think otherwise. I had no idea this was happening until 2 days before the start of the campaign. They have had all summer to prepare. We've been given an incredibly short time scale. No one knows this is going on, and I'm terrified. We're going to wake up next week, and loads of students are just going to ask what happened. I didn't know about this. I didn't know this was going to happen. This doesn't represent me at all, and these could potentially be really wide, sweeping changes that we haven't had enough time to consider. And frankly, we shouldn't be considering anyway. It's well outside a student union's mandate to be taking positions on geopolitical affairs. It's ridiculous.
Thank you very much. We'll take another question from the floor now from Abdel Karim Zawari. Yep, can we have a microphone brought down, please? No, sorry, the questions are from the floor to the campaign team.
Okay, my question is for the no side, and I'm just curious, as Lancaster students, why should we not boycott Israel when we know that Israel continues to expand settlements and build settlements which violate international law and violate the most basic human requirements of peace and preempt the peace talk, while also destroying the chances of a two-state solution by destroying the possibility of a contiguous, viable Palestinian state?
So first of all, you as a student can choose to do whatever you think is right. You are a person with moral agency, and if not buying things from Israel is what you want to do, then you have every right to do it. That's fine. What we say is that as a students' union, a union that could potentially include Israeli students, we probably shouldn't take massive sweeping decisions about what we do on a vote, which, as we've already heard, has been at best curiously done. We also right. That does that. Secondly, we just dispute that this idea that we don't understand the problem with the settlements. We understand. We are horrified. We think it's a problem. We just think that BDS is not the solution. We find it offensive that you continue to claim that we support them. We don't. We just support a peaceful resolution to the issues at hand, and we think the BDS is fundamentally a flawed way of doing that.
Thank you very much. Yes, campaign team.
Well, we, on the other hand, think that BDS is a fantastic thing for a student union to get involved in, because it's a university where the people who are going to go on to shape the international relations of the world come from. And the issue is that students within Palestine don't have the luxury of being able to continue and live a normal life as students, as they should be doing and as they would be doing if they weren't under occupation every day of their lives. Therefore, we as students in the international community have the obligation to stand up for our counterparts in other parts of the world and try to maintain their rights, because we have the ability to do so. And this is exactly what BDS is asking for. It's asking for international groups such as student unions, such as universities, academics, cultural artists. It's asking for these people to profess their support publicly. And it's a lot stronger to do that if you're coming from the point of view of an organisation such as a student union, and therefore it's our obligation to stand up for their rights rather than pretend it isn't an issue to do with us. It doesn't concern us because it's politics. It absolutely does concern us.
Thank you very much. We're going to take one more question now. It's another anonymous one. How will BDS affect this conflict other than entrenching division and hatred and fostering a violent atmosphere? To the No campaign team first.
think it will. Like we like what? So let's just imagine. Let's imagine that. So the aim of BDS, as she said, is an international campaign that it wants people to stand up and to say that they choose to boycott Israel. Note that the motion put forward in the referendum specifically requests that we don't buy things from companies involved in the occupation, and also professes support furthermore for boycotting companies that operate within Israel. This is incredibly dangerous insofar as some Israeli companies don't support the occupation. It's not black and white. Look at the example of McDonald's in Israel, which is operated by someone who helps to fund Peace Now, an organisation that campaigns for Palestinian rights, that refuses to work in the occupied territories. We think that insofar as these things are true, that it is incredibly dangerous for universities to keep standing up and saying we will not buy anything from Israel because we think as a logical extension of this that all of Israel is morally
Please
wrong.
finish your response.
Because it entrenches the right-wing narrative that has fed the fear of Israelis, has fed the right wing of Israel, which continues to oppress the Palestinian people on a large and continuous scale.
And to the Yes campaign.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for the question. Again, we say that saying that this kind of movements would maximize the violence, just simply, I don't think we can get another or a higher level of violence that more than burning a family alive. So we got the maximum of their violence. This is one. Two, the BDS movements, as such solidarity movements, are awakening the Israeli community from inside. And nowadays, we're getting more and more Israeli intellectuals, scholars, and institutions, Jewish and Israeli, and I'm here distinguishing between Jewish around the world, who feel really sorry for the Israeli government to use their name in such occupation, and they are against occupation, and they started to get involved in these movements. And nowadays, even within Israel, they started to talk about now we feel that if we keep going into this, we are paying the price of occupation, and we need to get into another way of solving the problem, and we need to put pressure on our governments because we started to pay for that in a peaceful way. We still saying that this way minimizes the violent confrontations. So I think when you fail to give me another alternative, when you fail to give hope for millions of Palestinians who suffer every day, who don't have any kind of rights, civilian or whatever, when you fail to give me another alternative, I don't want to spend all my life and my children's lives under occupation. I need a solution right now. Now, I know some people would say, no, this would, again, the same word. This might isolate some students here, Israeli or Jewish or whatever. I agree that this way is to put pressure, but in a peaceful way. And that's why we're having such peaceful and civilian movements to make pressure on the society from inside, like the demonstrations in Europe against wars in Iraq, in Afghanistan, whatever. You have the right to go against your own government. You don't feel isolated when I criticize your government. No, you feel engaged. You feel having a positive role, an active role in making the region into more peaceful place.
We're going to have a point of information from Tom about two of the questions.
Yeah, cool. So we've had a couple of questions about why this referendum is only concerned with the boycott of Israel. That's because we're following the clear mandate that the students set us in last Union Council. As we said before, the motion is primarily and only concerned with the Israel and Palestine debate, and that's why we're only focusing on the boycott of those products. We're not just being selective. That's not open for debate. That's how it is.
Is that it?
Yep, cheers.
Thank you. Sadly, we do have to be out of this room and packed up before 8 o'clock, so we are going to take one final question from... Sorry, can you read that? Mujin, sorry. Ah, yes. Very sorry. If I said your name wrong there.
Mujan.
Nearly.
My question is for the No campaign. You have been talking about peaceful dialogues that have been going on for a very long time, and understandably, you want a peaceful resolution that arises through these peaceful dialogues. But don't you think that the way these dialogues have been going, it still allows the illegal settlements to be built in Palestine, limiting lives of Palestinians more and more every day, without us doing anything? just sitting by waiting for something to happen. Surely we should be doing more. And the fact that the BDS is a peaceful way of pressuring the government of Israel, surely that's a good thing?
Yeah, thanks for your question. So firstly, we think the only way to end the illegal settlements is a complete and peaceful dialogue. And there's just been a lot of discussion today about how we're not doing anything and we have to do something. BDS is doing nothing. It's not going to influence the Israeli government at all. If anything, it's going to strengthen the position of people like Netanyahu, who frankly don't care that the settlements are illegal. And we need to be supporting progressive voices within Israel who are just as horrified by this as the rest of us. And BDS fundamentally doesn't do that. You can't win an election on an internationalist, peaceful platform if the rest of the world is not being open and internationalist towards you.
Thank you very much. A quick response from the Yes campaign team before we go to the closing
I think
statements.
the question itself answers itself. Thank you very much for this question. And I'm sorry I didn't get a good answer. I didn't understand anything how this would help in putting an end into useless negotiations. Just my question is for you. I would ask you in my question, after this long history of struggle, and again you are trying to say, and I'm not questioning your intentionality, I'm really grateful for your position saying that we are with the rights of Palestinians. But talking about isolating some communities against others, can you give me guarantee? I am a student here in Lancaster University. I feel not only isolated, my friends here from Palestine. You know that we can't go to Palestine nowadays to visit our families because we don't have guarantee to come back. So the issue, when you talk about, you don't please be selective. Once talking about Israelis as collective, and once selecting some Israelis abroad and saying that they represent the whole community. Again, when you fail to give me an alternative, not taking an action is an action. Failing to support the occupied, the oppressed, the ones the people who are under occupation for a long time is an action by itself. You can't be neutral. You either with this or with that. Now, either you now, by the end of the discussion, you give me a way to go and open a dialogue with the Israelis and get into a useful dialogue, or I think your moral commitment would require you to go and say yes for BDS.
Thank you very much. We are going to have to end the questions from the floor there. Thank you very much to everyone who submitted the questions. Sadly, we didn't have time to read them all out, but voting doesn't open until Wednesday. So please, if you do have further questions, ask them to the campaign teams after this event finishes. Yep, there are Facebook groups for both teams, and the link is at lusu.co.uk/BDS. If we can just have the lectern brought back on now, we are going to go to the closing statements. And once again, the Yes campaign team are going to go first. So please welcome Jasmine Owens to the lectern.
Hello. Right, so what we've established in this debate, I feel, is the fact that negotiations have been happening for 25 years, and on the ground in Palestine, the map has been shrinking, as you can see with the map since 1948. More Palestinians are dying, more settlements being created, and there is no end to the occupation in sight. People keep saying we need to keep negotiating, but it's having no results whatsoever, and BDS is actually having results. If we just look at a few actual BDS victories, which have happened in the last 10 years since BDS was first formed, we can see how, for example, just to name a few, Agrexco, Israel's largest agricultural producer, has gone into liquidation because of the results of BDS. The cooperative has stopped selling produce from illegal settlements. The University of Johannesburg has stopped dealing with Ben Gurion University because it can see the links it has with apartheid South Africa. And the EU Parliament has stopped renewing its contract with G4S. There are so many big achievements that BDS has had, and we need to allow it to keep growing and keep investing in BDS and answer the call that Palestinians are giving to us to support this movement. Also, as students, we need to represent the rights of Palestinian students who don't have the ability to defend their own rights. I've been happy for Rami to speak more today because he really understands, as a Palestinian person, what it's like to live on the ground. And they can't keep going on just having dialogue which isn't having any results. In their lifetime, they're just seeing it get worse and worse. And therefore, BDS should be, at the very least, an addition to dialogue, because dialogue, negotiations, discussions are having no actual effect on the occupation. And we need to be doing more. And BDS is asking us, as Lancaster Student Union, to say we're going to do more, and we should just say yes to it, as opposed to being passive and taking the side of the oppressor.
Thank you very much. And to close for the No campaign team, let's have Claire Robinson take to the lectern.
Always nice to appreciate it. Okay. They want us to offer them an alternative. I have an alternative. Come to dinner at my house. Come and meet my family. Come and meet my friends. And start to understand that the best way forward is to talk to each other. She says that stopping two universities talking to each other is a victory. We don't see that as a victory. We see that as the ultimate defeat. Because as much as they want to claim that they're making the world better, as much as they want to claim that BDS will change things, it will not. The best thing it does is it gives some people the small sense that maybe they've done something. But the truth is, it does nothing to help, and in fact makes everything worse. Joy cometh in the mornings, they tell us. And it has been an incredibly long time. But negotiations and protracted conflicts, something like this that was born out of a sense of fear and into a terrible situation, is never going to be easy. We would suggest to you that BDS won't work. And I'm going to tell you why. Because BDS fulfills every single one of the fears of the Israeli right. They tell the citizens of Israel that they are alone in the world, that they are disliked and that they are disenfranchised. BDS gives them something to hold on to. When the University of Cape Town stops talking to Ben Gurion University, the only people who are harmed in that are the students, are those Israeli students. What do they feel? They feel hatred. They feel scared, just as I imagine millions of Palestinians do every day. You're punishing the wrong people when you decide to do BDS, because as it was pointed out, it doesn't affect the Israeli government. Do you think Benjamin Netanyahu cares what you think? I don't think he does. Because I think he cares about staying in power. I think he cares about winning victory for the people who elected him. And those people are not the ones you are supporting with BDS. Because BDS is a slippery slope to a world in which boycotts are common, in which people stop talking to each other. It is a blunt tool for a complex, difficult conflict. And I'd also like to point out that they use the word Zionism and Israeli like they're interchangeable. I know many Israelis who are not Zionists, who reject the idea that they have any right to occupy the territories, and would find it frankly offensive to hear those words used simultaneously. We think that those are the people we should support. We think that the Israeli left has been incredibly ineffective in trying to push for a negotiated settlement, and we think that it's our duty to continue to support them, because at the moment nothing is happening. Because why? Because who are the people in this debate? Who are the people affected? Because we think that it is legitimate for Israelis to be scared, as well as for Palestinians. When I talk to what do you think happens when the ticker tape comes up on the TV saying breaking news? That you're scared and you're terrified. My aunt says she phones her kids and she just prays they pick up the phone. And then when they come home, she hugs them as close as she can. And she is so scared that they might not come back the next day. I imagine that is the exact same feeling that millions of Palestinians have. I think we can all agree that is a horrible situation for everyone involved to be in. We think that what's important in that case, and we think that what matters in this debate, is trying to bring an end to that fear, is trying to bring those people closer together, trying to make them care about each other and seeing the humanity inside of each other. Because at the heart of it all are two groups of people trying to live together and failing, not because they're scared of each other. We think that this only gets worse when you pass a motion that tries to push people onto one side or the other. We think that's what BDS does. We think that it scares people. We think that it reinforces the rhetoric of the Israeli right. We think that it stops conversation, and we think that it makes the words people use incredibly dangerous. We would beg you to not vote for this motion. We would beg you to think about what it means to say to those Israeli students who are desperately campaigning, to those Israelis in the trade unions who are desperately trying to
30 seconds remaining.
Keep themselves together, that what you're doing isn't enough. We think that negotiations are hard, we think negotiations are long, we think that ultimately they're the only option we have in bringing two sides of incredibly complex and difficult debate together. Insofar as BDS represents a blunt tool that will not help, that will isolate students on campus, will isolate Israeli students around the world, will stop people talking, we think it is appalling. We are therefore incredibly proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes tonight's debate. We hope you found it interesting and informative, and it has helped you to gain a greater understanding of the issues surrounding BDS. Before we go, I would like to thank the members of both the Yes campaign team, Rami Carrick and Jasmine Owens, and the No campaign team, Claire Robinson and Nathan Burns, for coming along and speaking tonight. If you would like to know more, as I said earlier, the links to the Facebook groups for both campaign teams are available on the website at lusu.co.uk/BDS. Polls are open from 10 a.m. on Wednesday till 4 p.m. on Friday, and the BDS referendum poll will be combined with other LUSU elections taking place. The ballots will contain options for yes, no, or to abstain. You'll receive your voter code and all the other information you need via email this week. Thank you very much for coming.